Hello.
Hello once again. I see that this is episode 71.
Episode
So,
71.
wow.
Yeah.
Yay. Because I know a couple weeks ago you were like, we're almost to 70.
Yeah.
And now we've surpassed
That was
it.
like my dad turned 85 yesterday and he was like,
Yay.
it's just really old. 85. And he's like, it's a big deal. And I was like, it is a big deal, but you've been like calling yourself 85 for 6 months. So as your daughter, I want to tell you that it feels very anticlimactic. He's like so worked up about it that I'm like, I've
It
been
was
thinking of him as 85 for months because he's been billing himself that way.
it's all in branding. You got to
Yeah.
be careful how you're branding.
And I feel like that's how we were. We were like talking about episode 70 on episode 67 or
Yeah.
something. And so, yeah,
And then,
old news. Old
well,
news.
and last week actually was our blockbuster, right? Didn't we spend almost a half an hour together chewing on that playbook?
Yeah, appropriate for
yeah,
episode 70.
there you go.
Well, we want to, I don't think we have to rehash the whole playbook, but there were a few things in there that we had kind of earmarked as things that could be interesting to dive into deeper at a later date. And so one of the ones that popped up that we kind of nominated as what we're going to talk about today is, so if, according to this study, brands benefit more from someone regardless of their size, someone who is the right fit for a brand. So if that is the new world order, and let's say there's an influencer with 4,000 followers who is the exact perfect fit for the brand and is going to create that content that really moves the needle with brand recognition and awareness, does it make sense that person gets paid so much less than someone with 400,000 followers whose content actually might not be that successful?
Well, first, I think there are so many points that you just brought up that require a little bit of definition, but I'll say this. 4,000 to 400,000, never have I ever seen a pricing structure that was 100x, right? So that the 4,000 person is getting $10 and the 400,000, whatever, $10,000 or something. So there isn't that level of parallel or, sort of tracking in compensation.
I think I'm trying to think of what it would,
but I was also
I think
going to say,
it's probably like 4 to 5 times X, right?
Well, I was going to say quite the opposite, that we have definitely worked with influencers on that higher end of follower count, depending on the niche, who are surprisingly affordable, who are well within a window that now we haven't necessarily engaged 4,000, like the level of 4,000 followers, but let's say 10, 20, 30 in comparison. And they might be percentage points off, but not multiples off.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're not seeing like 4 or 5x.
We do work with folks who are, we work with people as low as 1,000 sometimes if we're doing something super regional.
Is that B2B?
No, like if there's, like we used to work with BJ's stores, and if there was like a store opening or
okay, gotcha.
Right, and it like
so,
in
and that's
a tiny
the point.
town,
It's
right?
not
Like if
the size.
if you're opening a store in Seabrook, New Hampshire,
you need
gotta
people
find someone who lives in Seabrook, New Hampshire, and their
1,000 followers are probably not built because they're a creator. They literally might know all of those people.
Yeah, like they're from PTA or whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
So okay. So to your point, it's not 100x.
Well, also, wait, let's back up and not lose sight of what we just said. And this will tie into maybe the argument or discussion around influencer versus creator. But let's talk about that 1,000 follower gold mine of a person you find in Seabrook, New Hampshire. They are also probably not somebody with a rate card in some instances. You are literally knocking on their door. You're tapping them on the shoulder. You're not going through an agency or a management team. You are like, hey, friend, we found that, you're in the right place at the right time. Like Greg Brady, this is such a throwback. You fit the suit, like, the rock star suit. So they're not a rock star, but they fit the suit. So how on earth, and maybe I'm taking us too off topic, but how on earth does that factor in to pricing regulations and normalizing pricing?
I mean, I can tell you what we do. And I think, to back up, I think, first of all, a lot of this comes down to how you build the program in the first place. And if we have a client who really needs to move the needle in some way, we're going to look like, how much content do you want to generate? What are you trying to accomplish? We're building a program that's going to make sense for them. And likely it's not going to include a ton of these larger people. There might be one or two for whatever reasons. But I think those proof points in the study that you can end up that fit is more important than size. Mm-hmm. I think that impacts how you build a program. What I can say on our end is we have this pricing worksheet that we do, and it has starting points based on size and tier for what we can expect to pay for certain size creators. I will tell you that those are suggestions. So before we even finalize a pricing worksheet, we are meeting with our influencer team to say, like, hey, do these base rate suggestions make sense?
Yeah. In the real world.
Right. Does the client want only doctors? Does the client want only people in New Hampshire? Are there factors in here that will impact this
so
pricing?
Many variables.
And sometimes the pricing goes down. Sometimes it's like, you know what? We need moms of young kids who love, who need to show back to school ideas. Like, that is just, there's a lot. There's a lot of them. It's supply and demand, right?
Community.
So sometimes we can take the numbers down. Yeah. More often we have to take the numbers up. And then what I will say is that we always leave in, there's always a bucket of money available at the bottom for our influencer team to turn to. If you might find someone who is smaller, but they are an absolute perfect fit. They create stellar content. They know their worth as a content creator, and they charge more, and we want to be able to use them. And so you can selectively we can
pull them in.
That bucket of money allows us to flex.
Yeah. And that's like negotiation 101 or budgeting 101. It's a great point. What I think you and I are noticing or wanting to call attention to, if this insight and this research data point around fit matters more than followers, it really does open up this new language around who are we bringing into these campaigns and why. Mm-hmm. And there are going to be downstream impacts to discovery, curation, vetting, onboarding, negotiation. So that's where I'm saying now there's this, I'll call it a gray area, where does influencing start? And you're at 1,000 followers, you're not really dealing with an influencer. Where does it start that you've got somebody who's done this before, because I think the underlying question is, are we now readjusting our rates? Does that 4,000 person get as much as the 400,000 person? And I'll say what factors in here is how much hand-holding will that person need versus the 400,000 person. And I'm going to say a 1,000 follower person who's man on the street, woman on the street, that you're just tapping on their shoulder and saying, we see you. Would this be interesting to you? Is going to need a lot of help. Yeah. A lot of guidance. And where does that come?
And not just on the content creation. Like, we have to sit with them side by side to get set up in our system and authenticate for metrics, and then
to get them into a professional account for their
I tell this story all the time. Like, we once did a program with a contractor, and he sent us his caption draft on a legal pad written in pen, like a picture of it, right? Like,
and probably had some teenager behind the scenes actually typing it into his whatever.
Right. Like, when you're working with someone who is inexperienced in the world of influencer marketing, there's a lot of work that goes into it.
A lot of work, big learning curve. And so what does that do to compensation rates? Are we as agencies
paying them less because of that? Yeah, that's some. I mean, and I think that's a factor. So, like when you're looking at what you pay someone who's 400,000 versus 4,000, I think the obvious takeaway is, oh, they're bigger, so we're paying them more because they're bigger. But what you're saying, I think, is the more accurate thing is no, we're not necessarily like, sure, maybe a little bit, but also we're paying them more because they're experienced, because they're going to know what to do, because they're going to get their stuff in on time, because
it's
now that
seamless?
they have reached this size, they are a professional
One
in
would
this
hope.
profession. One would
Yeah.
hope, right?
We're going to have fewer
all have
headaches.
stories. Yeah.
It's going to not delay the timeline. It's not going to disappoint the client because
Right.
of XYZ. They may have management involved.
Yeah,
So,
it's like when you pay, for any, when you're working with a trainee
oh, right.
at a job, right?
Yes,
Like you
an
don't pay as much
apprentice.
to an intern or a
Yep.
trainee or an apprentice because they're learning on the job.
Right. And I'm always advocating for what makes agencies like ours worth bringing into a program. There is a lot of knowledge that needs to be shared, a lot of training that goes on. And so, again, I don't want brands to get this idea like, oh, great, now we're going to initiate or activate programs with people with low follower count because it'll now reduce our overhead. It likely won't.
Right.
And it could stay the same. It could actually go up, like you said, because we have to factor in all of those pieces so that it doesn't become a cluster.
Yeah.
And I mean, you're going to pay for it on one side or the other. So I think budgets are going to have to stay the same, even with activating, folks who are not macro and mega influencers.
Yeah. And then I guess the one thing I want to make sure doesn't happen is I don't want the response. My fear when I see a stat like that is there's going to be someone who says, oh, cool, the people who are smaller are more effective, so let's just pay them based on performance, and then everyone's happy.
I feel like we are always pushing against that on this podcast,
all the time.
right?
Yeah.
Like just in general, like
And
we're
in
saying
life,
that's muddying the waters. That's part of my I think there's a place there for that conversation around influencer versus creator. I feel like it sprang up in tandem with media treating influencer as a media buy and creators becoming the thing versus influencers. I'm even more dead set on separating the definition between the two. And I read this great article today that helped me explain it. It's like influencers bring meaning. Influencers have discipline. There's a discipline that allows depth of connection, and creators are hitting trends and a lot more surface. So how do you pay? Like maybe that's why brands want creators to be linked to performance.
You know where I struggle every time we try to have this debate? Like, this is going to sound so jaded. Like, I think I don't care. I think I don't
totally
care
do.
I think I don't care what we call them. I
absolutely do. I think the
to
creator.
me, it's like if I'm talking to you and you are making your living as someone who's generating content and posting it online, like my question to you, almost like, she, her, he, him pronoun type of a thing. Like, what would you like to be called? And then I'll call you that. Like, I care that I'm not insulting like back in the day, if someone called me a mommy blogger, my response was to want to punch them. Like, that's not what I want to do, right? Like, I don't want to ever insult.
Step on toes.
We once did a survey of our network and asked what they wanted to be called, and most of them wanted to be called creator. Not
no doubt, because I think influencer got a very, very
bad rap. It would be interesting to redo that survey, actually. But
but I think the power is in influencing and not in creating.
Yeah,
and that's
I just think it's
feel like we're lacking.
Like they're kind of, if you force me to define it, like I've said before, I think all influencers are creators, but not all creators are influencers. So if we want to, I'd rather kind of define it in that fuzzy way than like you are this or this, because I think there's a lot of overlap. I think at the end of the day, I truly don't care. And like whatever my clients want to call it, that will convince them to pay me money. Call it whatever you want, just pay me money. And for the folks in our network who are generating this amazing content for us day in, day out, like what pleases you, like what name would please you most, I will call you that. Like I just really don't care.
That to me is like when we spoke last week or whenever it was about this playbook and the idea of the overproduced versus authentic, and how you're saying like they're not mutually exclusive. Influencer, creator are not mutually exclusive. Where I want to hold the line is I believe by allowing those definitions to be muddied, that's what drags influencer marketing into this debate around performance and media buys and looking like programmatic and transactional. And that to me is a very, not just a slippery slope. I think it's where we've kind of given up the footing in why influencer marketing was and is still so powerful when we just call everything creator marketing. I just think we lose. I see our industry as separate and losing the ability to have conversations on our terms versus on the media buying terms. Well,
I will respond to you with what I just said. So like whatever you want me to call it with you, I don't want you to be upset.
No, I'm not upset. I just want to leverage it. Like I want to make sure that it's a strategic, and part of the reason that brings me like sort of full circle on this topic is, and on this podcast, we often chew on these topics, willing to say, we don't always have the answer. We don't always know. And I feel like this rush to go into a media buying model, a programmatic is, oh, we know we can, like you've often said, we can guarantee results in this segment because we're purchasing eyeballs and we're targeting all of that. That doesn't solve for we don't often know how to measure top of funnel, mid funnel, brand awareness, brand sentiment, and nobody will buy the product if they don't know you. So it's super important, that part of it. So that's why I'm still fighting for the distinction, not because I want to fight with you, never, more because I want to touch grass around. There's oftentimes we just don't know. A friend of ours, Corey Martin, said recently he's steeped in influencer marketing. He said in the hundreds or maybe thousands of campaigns he's run, not one was the same. Not one could be cookie cutter, copied and pasted. If that's the case, we need to protect language and how we measure or how we talk about results very, very carefully and not be swept into it all looks the same. It can scale. Volume is key. So that's kind of where all of this is coming from. And I don't know if you want to bring it back to the pricing piece or the fit versus follower.
Yeah.
But I think the fit versus follower is a clear example of qualitative, quantitative, and they're not mutually exclusive. Never.
Not at all.
So that's what you're also like, let's not just rush into, let's do nothing but fit.
I also think, to get back to your point before about always wanting to come up with a reason why people should hire agencies like ours, I will say that you might find there are a lot of people who would be a great and perfect fit for a brand, and because they're not experienced or because they have not been doing it a super long time, they need a little work to get that content to where it should be. One, obviously, brands should make sure that they either themselves are prepared to do that coaching and get that content and help make it shine, or work with an agency who is able to do that. And then just to say, like, I love when that moment happens. Like when you find this diamond, I hope this doesn't sound condescending. Like you find that diamond in the rough who has that amazing story to tell, and maybe they just have never been coached on like how to tell it in a great way. And, you know, they submit a video concept and we massage it a bit and help them get it to a better place that's going to yield something better. And then they submit a draft and we help them, refine that voiceover and give them some notes. Like we had an influencer yesterday. We submitted a few influencers to a client for August content. And one of them, the client had rejected because they said low energy.
Oh, yes.
And our response was like, that's not a thing with us. Like that won't happen with that's a briefing. That's a briefing.
That's
a note
in
to
briefing.
Us. That's a note to us.
Yeah.
That's not a reason. Like if someone is a great fit and they have there is a story that they can tell, like just ping us and say like, I've noticed that some of their stuff is low energy. We need to flip that and we will make it happen.
Yeah.
And that's so much fun when we can do that.
I love that you pointed out that that's not a deal breaker. That's a note to us. And this is why, and now we're way maybe off topic, but why I do think that agencies like ours are so valuable is we take 20 years of experience, condense it into what do we know right now. Again, in the thousands of campaigns we've run that none were the same, there are still so many learnings that accumulate and you can pinpoint into, we know how to bring out the best in each piece of content and that's not, I know you've done bigger programs. We've done some bigger, it's not scalable though, in a sense of just like shoot shit out there and just like spray and pray, right? Yeah. It is custom. It shortcuts that learning curve for every influencer. Doesn't even have to be the new ones. I mean, there are influencers, I've told this story back in the day when we were doing a bulk of the approving and editing of content on behalf of our clients. We had bloggers say to us, can you do this for all of our content, like all of my content? Right. Like they just loved the process if you handle it the right way. And it's very delicate. You don't want the brand to do that in many cases because they might end up with a strained relationship or a bad reputation out there. You want the middleman.
Well, and isn't this a reason to not hire an agency who does everything with AI? Like, how is AI going to help with the low energy?
Low energy, right? Well, they'll put 6 fingers on every hand, maybe. So jazz hands will be a lot more
That's
jazzy.
One solution, yeah.
It's a great point. It's so human.
Yeah.
It's so human at the end of the day. So, and I think that's why both of us like it's moving toward fit away from just followers.
Yeah, I think it's great.
And I do believe there's a meeting point where both of those things can start to be true because fit and follower for the BJ's opening in, the southwest corner of a state where 4,000 is both follower and fit for that program.
Right,
so it becomes synonymous.
Yeah. This was fun.
Yeah, good topic. Thanks for wandering around.
Yeah, of course. Okay, more soon.
See you soon.